Hey, hello, this is Annie at Mini Moon Arts, and today we're going to put together one of these necklaces. Thank you so much for joining me. I would really love it if you would like and subscribe at the end of the video if you enjoyed it. So let's get into the tools that you are going to need to make this. First, you're going to need some round nose pliers. You don't need anything fancy, just some cheap ones will do. These ones are you can have either a needle nose, which is what I've got, or chain nose pliers. Some flush cutters, preferably the slightly posher ones, just because they get a cleaner cut for you. Those are your key tools. I have got a wire rounder here, which has got like little burrs on like a concaved cup, which I use to just smooth the edges. You can use just a simple nail file will do. And then we've got 2 gauges of wire there. We've got a 0.8mm and we've got a 0.6mm. I'm just holding up a quartz crystal, which is a clear quartz, and I've got sodalite beads and amethyst, which are the beads that this particular customer asked for. Okay, so whilst I just clear these away, I'm ready to get us started. The original necklace at the beginning that you saw was created for a customer to help her with empowerment for her business, and it was such a joy to create that I just had to make another one. And thankfully a customer reached out to me and asked for one specifically with these stones. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time picking the right stone. When you're doing crystal work, especially if you're working with irregular stones such as chip beads, make sure that you do put aside some time for choosing your particular bead that you want to use. I'm just going to fast forward this bit because you don't really need to watch that, I don't think. Okay, so that's my sodalite bead chosen, and now I'm just measuring the 0.8mm wire, and I measured out there about 26 inches, which is quite a lot, but I always measure too much because you can always chop some off and you can always create something from your scraps. Whereas if you cut off too little, then you're going to have a bit of a problem. So always err on the side of caution. If you're not sure how much wire you need, you can always get some more, can't you? Just using my rounding tool there just to get the edges, for the purpose of having no scratchy edges on the actual item, but also so that I don't get scratched whilst I'm making it. Wire can be a little bit unruly at times. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to measure a little way from one end, and you're going to take your round nosed pliers. So I'm just measuring approximately 9 to 10 inches, which is quite a lot. You don't need to do that. You probably need to do around 5 inches, depending on how big you're creating your herringbone piece. The method of making that I'm doing here is called a herringbone. So I've just got my round nose pliers, and I found my favourite spot for making an eye, an eyelet, which is around the centre of my round nose pliers. You can use bail makers as well. I have a 6-step one, and I find that the first step is absolutely perfect. So here we are just wrapping around, and I do 5 wraps around. There is some numerology which is included in the creation of this piece, and you can find all the information about that below in the description. And here we're just going to focus on the creation. So we want to just take the flush cutters, and always try to have the flat side where you want to cut it, because then that means that you get a flat cut. If you use the other side, you get a bit of a pointed cut. And I'm just going off camera there, but what I'm doing is I am flattening down the end just to make sure that we've not got any snaggies going on anywhere there. Of course, always use the aid of all your pliers, your tools. There's absolutely no shame in using your tools whatsoever. If they help you get to your end goal, then that's perfect. Okay, so we're just straightening things up there, and we're just going to string on the beads. So I have my one bead on there, and it's just a little close up so that you can see the coils, and I am just measuring the length of the coils. It might be different from mine to yours. It's always good just to get a bit of a measurement. I would normally just eyeball things, but for the purpose of the video I want to show you measuring. And then what I'm doing is I am making an eye on the other side at the height away from the stone that would allow me to then do the same amount of turns with the wire towards the center to frame the stone. So that's what's just going on here. You can see that I'm kind of massaging the wire as we go around, and you will find that the wire really kind of speaks to you as you work with it. Here I'm just counting the rounds that I've done on the other side to make sure that they're equal and even, and you want to make sure that there is a little bit of wiggle room for your stone, especially if you're working with something which is irregular like the one that I am working with, because otherwise, and it's a natural gemstone, which they do come in different hardnesses on the Mo scale, but you want to make sure that you are not risking snapping your crystal and having to start again, which will be a little bit heartbreaking. So here I'm starting to round the wire, and you really need to take your time about this. You need to make sure that you are shaping the wire with your fingers as much as possible, and you want to be taking the wire over the top, and you can see there over the top of the wraps that you've done on there, and bring it round to the back, swoop it round the back, and then you are swooping it to the other side. Make sure that you take your time over this, and as you can see I'm just using my pliers there to just tighten the wire. As I'm using silver plated copper there, the plating actually kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to use the wire, makes it a little bit stiffer, and here you can see that I'm trying to shape the wire with my thumb, so that it has a nice and natural curve. It's a little bit like when you are doing streamers, like for balloons, you know, where you run the scissors around it, it creates a curl. It's the same kind of principle as that. You're just shaping it with your fingers, and as you're doing that you actually warm the wire, which makes it a little bit easier to use. So I've taken it over the top, swooped it round the back again, and then we are coming down the other side for another round, and we're going to do this a couple of times. Sorry, I went off camera there, but again you saw that action of taking it over the front, swooping it round the back, and back around the front again to go down the other side, and we're shaping with our thumbs again. And you get into a bit of a rhythm with it, and that will create a really lovely perfect pace. And as I've just done there, don't forget to stretch your hands out a little bit, as it can be a bit taxing at times. So here you can see that I am snipping off my 0.6 wire. You could also use a 0.4 if you wanted to, but I just prefer a slightly sturdier wire. For the gauges, I know I'm using English sizing. I will put all the gauges below, or I'll put a little ding telling you what they are. So I've found the middle of my wire and I've just created a gentle bend in it, and I am just joining it to the main piece here. The purpose of this is to add the amethyst beads. The reason I need to use a thinner wire is because they have a thinner hole to them. They're quite dainty little stones, so they've got quite a tiny little drilled hole in them. So we need to just add that other wire so that we can actually attach them. And this bit is a little bit fiddly, so please take your time. Remember, you're going to have wires sticking out here, there and everywhere, so watch your eyes. I always create with my glasses on just in case. Okay, so we've wrapped it around and I'm just bringing those bits round to the front and building a bit of a curve in them with my nails. I'm going to take my beads there. As you can see, they're gorgeous little dainty crystal amethysts, and I'm going to be threading them on so that they fit nice and snugly around the Sodalite stone and around the frame that we've already created. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed that up so that you're not sat here waiting for me to choose the pretty beads. Okay, now that we are threading the beads on, you can see that I've put too many on. I always try and start with the number 7. I just really like the number 7. There's a lot of meaning in that number, and unfortunately there's too many there. So I'm going to take some off, and I'm also just doing another wrap with the other side because it needed securing a little bit more. You're always better to be safe than sorry with that type of thing. So I'm just gently shaping the beads and the wire around, and I've taken off the excess beads that I don't need. It's good when you're making to have a little bit of a fiddle, and as you can see, I decided that I need another bead to go on here. So I'm just going to pop another one back on. There we go. Take your time about this stage. As you'll see in a second, I'm actually going to take that bead back off. And the reason being that it was too tight at the top, and actually I'd rather there be a little bit of movement in the beads, and there needs to be space. You need to remember that there needs to be space for the rest at the top. So just wrapped that securely around the top, and now we're going to thread onto the other side and do exactly the same on the other side as we've done on that one. I've just sped this up because honestly you don't need to see it again. It's exactly the same as the other side. I've done a couple of wraps at the top there to secure it to the piece, and we'll just use my flush cutters to cut it off. I've just sped this up slightly, but as you can see I've got my pliers and I'm just tightening those ends up to keep them nice and secure and tucked in the other wires. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue with the herringbone look. So I've clearly just gone off camera again. Need to sort that out, don't I? And we are just doing exactly the same around the front, swoop around the back, and you're coming out the same side that you started on. And I've just used my thumbs to warm the wire back up to make that curve. And we've gone around the front, swooped around the back, and come out the other side. And using thumb again, just straightening the thing up, straightening the piece up, sorry, it's not a thing, it's a piece. And making sure that those amethyst beads are in a good position for being framed by that outer swoop. And it looks like they're being a little bit tricky. There we go. So come around the front again, and this final swoop you could not do it. if you are making along, if you are having a go at this, you know, you don't have to do exactly what I do. In fact, you should try and do something that is your own. But equally, if you're just starting, it's good to follow along with someone and make something that looks just like what's been produced in the video. I'm so sorry that my throat's gone. Yesterday I was recording this in the morning, the voiceover, and the family all woke up, so I had to stop. And then this morning I've got a little bit of a sore throat going on. Okay, so that is the finished wrap for the herringbone part, and we've just clipped that off and clip it as close as you can, and then I'm just tucking the end in there to make it nice and secure, so that there's no scratching. Have a good feel, make sure that there's no scratching, and if there is, then there we go, just file it off. And there we go, that looks beautiful. And next we will go on to looking at doing the wire wrapping for the quartz point. Okay, so let's get on with making the quartz point. I've got some of my 0.8 millimeter wire there, and I'm just taking the end, going off camera, and I've just twisted the end to make a little loop, and then using my chain nose stroke needle nose pliers, I'm just rounding it, I'm just gripping it and rounding it, and you can see that I'm just flattening it there. And normally I would hammer, but I believe that my toddler was sleeping in the room next door, so I used the alternative method of getting that nice hard and flattened look by just clenching it with my pliers there. So I've got a drilled quartz point there, and we just post it through the drilled hole at the top. You're best to try and find one that has a nice flat face for you to kind of work this part, and then I'm just leaving a little bit of space and folding that nice swirly down. And I'm just shaping the wire so that it's kind of in the middle of the top, putting my pliers on and making the loop round. I'm probably going to do a separate video showing how to do this. This is a method of quartz point wrapping that I have spent a lot of years perfecting. I'm almost a little bit nervous to share it, but you know, sharing is caring and all that jazz, and I want others to be able to create their own beautiful pieces. So I've just wrapped it a couple of times under the spiral wire there, and I'm just bringing it up to the top here. So I've done this quite quickly on here, and I suspect that that was because nap time was coming towards an end. I'm actually recording this as a voiceover, so the next video that I will do a slower version of creating these points, and perhaps I will show a couple of different methods for wrapping a quartz point, because the possibilities are endless with these little guys. But this is what I do. This is the method that I've been using for a couple of years now and selling in stores very successfully. So there we go, use the round nose pliers again, and we're just creating another swirl at the top here. You don't have to do swirls. I just really love swirls. I like the fact that they finish your ends off and in a really pretty way. And there we go, just folding it down, and I'm just going to use my thumb to shape that into the top there. And I love how organic they look as well. Fiddle with it, make sure that you have made it so that it's perfect for what you want. That's the whole point of learning how to do jewellery making, and for me that's the whole point of doing these tutorials, is to give you some ideas and give you the the methods on how you do these things, and sometimes just watching somebody else do something really inspires new ideas. If you're wanting to have like an inspirational crystal nearby, then maybe pick up a carnelian, a lovely beautiful orange carnelian, which is a colour of, it's beautiful. It's a stone of inspiration and creativity. There we go, so that's the 2 pieces there, and I will be joining those with some jump rings. They're not jump rings that I've made for myself, they will just be jump rings that I've got in a set. I always feel a bit nervous about making my own jump rings for some reason. There's no particular reason why, but yeah, I just have a thing that in my head that makes me feel like the jump rings that I make are probably not going to be as good as the ones that have been made for us. Maybe that in my head they're not going to be as strong because they're not made from tempered wire. So when you're splitting a jump ring, always do it like it's an opening door. Never pull it outwards, otherwise you're never going to get your shape. I will also do a quick little short or something that shows how to do that. And that's the piece put together. And now all that's left to do is to grab myself a chain. The customer wanted a silver chain, and using another jump ring there, opening it like a door, is to attach the chain to the piece. Once you're happy that you've got everything aligned and you haven't got the jump ring through a chain link rather than just through the chain, close up your jump ring in the same way that you opened it and line up the ends, and you've got your finished piece. How beautiful is that? Thank you so much for following this along with me. If you've made along with me and created something yourself, I would really love to see it. Thanks so much.